What's good, yeah, and welcome to showcase number 2. This is Lubu, the flying general. Now, before we get into his kit and the trailer and everything like that, let me briefly talk about him in general. So Lubu is known to be wielding a spear, and he's also good with the bow, which you can kind of both see here. But also something that is almost as known as Lubu is him on his horse, right? His horse called Red Hair. And this is about as big as a missed opportunity as you can get for a perfect character that canonically is riding a red horse to not be of the new Vanguard faction that is supposedly going to be riding on horses and such to change and swap direction on the battlefield, making him just a normal fighter. But let's see if he can redeem himself with this kit and the trailer.
Our research begins.
Trailer, here we go.
There is only the vanquisher and the vanquished.
So, here we go. There is a Horsy, right? We talked about the Horsy briefly. Otherwise, again, clean artwork. Obviously nothing too much drawn. Same with Diao, but more of like realistic style. Great transitions, great music, great animations. What more do you expect? As usual, as soon as you pull a legendary and you see one of these trailers pop up, you know it's about to be a good time. So come on, finish him up and then we'll get into your base stats and kit. So ready for this.
There is only the vanquisher
and the vanquished. Alright, music, time for you to go back on the back foot. So, he is a fighter, he is a northerner, and he is a chaotic unit. There is a slight chance that my guy is going to be summonable from normal summons, though it does seem like he's going to be a ancient exclusive hero. The attacks are multi-target attack, durability, and range boost. And now the base stats. Okay. So we have a 3-tile basic attack range, which is obviously 1 tile more than a normal 2-tile fighter. It is at least not a 1-tile range, so it is already perfect. Otherwise, we have a relatively low-ish amount of HP at 19,000 or close to 20,000. So nothing crazy like Abomination at 30k or Jira. Otherwise, we have 5,400 attack, which is also above average, though nothing super fancy. When we look at, for example, someone like Salazar at 6,500. We have a lot of defense at 3,000, a lot of defense. Magic Rest, understandably low. We have a redeployment time reduction through the Northerner faction bonus of -5 seconds, a cost of 20, a 2.6 attack interval, which is about standard for fighters, 12, 9, 7 rage region. Okay guy, make or break, what are you all about? Skills. Talent. Every 12 seconds the neck... Alright, time for the skills. What is he all about? Talent. Every 12 seconds the next basic attacks consume 15% of current HP to gain Chaos Strike. Chaos Strike deals 320% AoE damage to up to 10 enemies in a large area ahead. Okay, every 12 seconds 320% AoE damage. When deployed, immediately enters Deep Descent. Deep Descent. Entered a state with independent HP and starts with 65% HP. When Chaos Strike is triggered, it inflicts a 50% slow for 3 seconds. When receiving fatal damage in this state, exit the state and restore 50% HP. So the way this looks is that, let's say for example he has 30k HP. That means he's going to enter into a separate instance where he again has 30k max HP, but he only starts at, what is it going to come out to, like 20k HP. And then at these 20k HP, when these get used up, he exits the state and then heals back to 50% of his own HP. Okay. Furthermore, he gains the enhancement effect of the ultimate Dark Star, but he cannot use the ultimate during this stage. So he insta-ults on deployment. When his own HP drops below 65%, Chaos Strike trigger interval is reduced by 2 seconds. So rather than every 12 seconds, it would go down to 10 seconds. And then you heal him above 65%, and then you bring him below, and then you heal him above, and then you bring him below. And that is how you further reduce Chaos Strike's interval. Okay. Basic attack. 3-tile range, 120% AoE damage to up to 5 enemies with normal damage typing. So no magic, no piercing, just normal damage type as we are used to seeing from our fighters. Lapse of Reason. When not in deep descent, so after being deployed for 15 seconds, he gains 1.5% rage when attacking enemies. For every 20% max HP damage taken, he gains an additional 2% rage, and both effects double when his current HP drops below 50%. So for the first two 20% damage drops, you gain 2% rage. And then for the last 2 drops down to 20%, you're going, so from 60 to 40, 40 to 20, you're going to get 4% rage. So overall, dropping down to 20% HP, and then without any outside healing, you're going to get 12% rage. And then if you heal below 50% HP, and then you take more than 20% again, you're going to get still 4% rage for that, as well as also 1.5% rage per attack, as long as he is below 50% HP. Next up, Power Hungry. When his HP is below 65%, he increases his own damage by 30%. For each ally within 2 tiles with an HP of below 65%, he increases his damage by a further 10% up to 30%. So and then when the hero's or an ally's HP drops below 30% for the first time, he gains 30% rage. So the way this looks is like he is a perfect fit for the chaotic faction, and someone like, let's briefly go to him just so we all know what we're talking about. Someone like Dosomi seems like the perfect healer to go alongside of him, or someone like Diao-chan, because she can decide when she heals and when she buffs. Because right here, my guy only heals units that are over, if they are below 50%, so he only heals them ever up to 50% HP, and then he removes the debuffs. So with a unit like the Somi, you could ensure that every unit around him is at 30%, at 65% or lower, so 50%, which means he would be able to, if he himself is below 50% and he has 3 chaotic units around him that are also below 50%, he would be able to gain up to a 60% damage increase. Okay. Arena passive. Increases his own damage in the arena by 15%. That is already pretty huge, but it is at least not a cost reduction. Now the bond skill that you get when you do obtain a Diao-chan, let's have a look. Obtain the hero Diao-chan Moon's Radiance to unlock the following bonus effect. It increases the duration of deep descent and enhanced state from his ultimate gain upon deployment by 15 seconds, which means he is going to enter into deep descent for 30 seconds rather than 15 seconds upon first deployment, but it does seem like that is just something upon deployment. So your Lubu with a Diao-chan is going to be stronger for longer earlier on. Now, what does Darkstar do? Darkstar keeps the same 3-tile range, and he immediately enters into Deep Descent. So this state right here, this one is for 25 seconds rather than 15. Upon reaching maximum power, he immediately enters Deep Descent and gains enhancement effects. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Upon reaching maximum power, immediately enters Deep Descent. Okay, but what it does is it increases his own attack by 40% and reduces the trigger interval of Chaos Strike by a further 3 seconds, which means that he is now going to Chaos Strike every 9 seconds, as well as then by dropping below 65%, he would do it every 7 seconds. And that is his full kit. So, something that already instantly comes to mind is his synergy in the whole chaotic faction, and something that Destin talked to me about was him being compared to Ardea, because both of them do have that long range, both of them do have that AoE capability, though what you are going to notice straight away is the fact that Ardea has 1 tile more range. Oh yeah, before we get into the Awakening, something I've completely forgotten is also the fact that he owns an exclusive artifact. So what does it do? Number 1, it increases the AoE damage by 15%. When Chaos Strike kills an enemy, it reduces the trigger interval of the next Chaos Strike by 4 seconds. This can happen every 30 seconds. Let's see what changes if we do upgrade the WoW. I would say it's probably just the AoE damage. Yes, you can see a 3% increase in AoE damage, which means you're going to be ending up with an artifact that gives them exactly 30% increased AoE damage. Overall, it seems like his best in slot, though doesn't scream single target focus, but more of a single target arena / overall AoE content focus. Something that instantly comes to mind has to be Conqueror, and otherwise I guess you could probably even run him in Guild Boss or Gear Raid 1 to some form of success, which we might try out just for fun. So let's continue on with the Awakenings. Okay, now another thing that is obviously make or break, and that is the ultimates. What are we dealing with? A1. Okay, it is an enhancement of the basic attack range by 1 tile. Damn. So it is a 20% damage boost if he is not the one blocking, as well as him getting the same range as an Ardea. Seems overpowered. That's A1. A2, cost -2. A3, he increases Chaos Strike's damage multiplier by an additional 40%, so 360%, and he also executes enemies below 15% HP, while elite monsters and bosses are excluded. So there is already a focus on single target arena, which I think up to a 5 or 6 does not include elite monsters, so he would be able to execute them past 15%. Though it would have to be him triggering a Chaos Strike, which isn't something you can force all that well. A4, 300 attack. A5, when under Deep Descent and is enhanced state, taking fatal damage will not instantly end these states. Instead, he becomes immune to that damage and reduces the duration of Deep Descent and enhanced state by 5 seconds. So let's say he has 20% HP, he gets hit for 21%. Rather than leave Deep Descent, he just reduces it from, for example, 20 seconds down to 15, and then on another hit from 15 seconds down to 10. Okay. Now the real question is, how can my guy actually die? So he can never die during Deep Descent, because when he does receive fatal damage, he exits the state and restores 50% HP. So only when he is out of Deep Descent, so every window of the 25 seconds for the ultimate, which is really cheap at 800 rage cost, Only when he is not in deep descent is it even possible for him to die. Damn. That already sounds pretty amazing. I think the first one we're gonna test is obviously his damage potential, and we're going to be bringing the King of Damage, Volderon, Lubu, and just because I want to, we're probably gonna be bringing Admiral Claw too, as well as Diao-chan for the inspiration, the Somi for healing. This sounds like a disgusting team to test out in Guild Boss 1. Here we go. So this is the following team we quickly came up with. It contains equal gear on everybody in IR/SA variants. So let's quickly have a look at it. These are the total stats, and here brief look. You have one piece that has an attack flat stat. All the others are 3 rolls as well as attack percent, crit rate, crit damage on the weapons. On the plans, just quickly, you'll see that here we have SA test 1, similar stats, test 2, similar stats, 3, 4, as well as on Silas there is the same IR set as on Volderon. Artifact wise, Volderon is going to be going in with his Wailing Skull, while we bring in Lubu and a Ram tier. Admiral Claw is also going to come in with a Ram tier. The Somi is in attack speed with a 100% attack, high attack speed, high rage regen, artifact effect. The ultimate really isn't that important, but obviously it helps. Diao-chan, we already briefly covered her in the earlier video, but she has a Dolores-esque build, so around plus 10,000 attack. The attack speed is already rather high at 224, and as far as I can tell, attack speed does have a effect on her. So at 3.7 seconds, that means every 3.7 seconds she would heal for 3 times, but we won't be using her in her heal stance at all if we can avoid it. That's what we really have my guy Dusomi here for. He's supposed to keep our team alive. Then we have Yova, who really is just there for the Lord bonus. We're not going to be placing him down. He's just gonna look pretty, as well as then a Silas in exclusive gear at plus 10. Hex in exclusive gear at plus 10. Eloin in Rage Region / once again Inspiration set with an Euphoric Orb. And then a Mary, which we're actually gonna give another Inspiration set, Invigoration set, because the chances of her actually doing something on the field should be basically 0 if everybody survives. So let's get into this fight, see how this goes, and the best part about using Diao-chan is obviously the ease of use. So simply speaking, we go in with Hex, we start providing the first Inspiration. Yeah, we do really want her there so that we can avoid her healing any of our chaotic units. Next up, we're going to be looking at, we're probably going to be looking at Silas, I think we want to place him here, then also provide him. Next then it's going to be Volderon, because there's already 3 targets. He's going to get the boost from Diao-chan, then probably Lubu, like this, with a the Somi. We can actually put Volderon in the front because he does have the Wailing Skull, which Claw doesn't have, so we might as well boost Claw's damage a tiny bit. So right here, that is then going to be our first Inspiration. This should be Inspiration number 2, or Invigoration obviously. Then Volderon up here, which should be him getting buffed. Oh, we wanted to replace Salazar. See, but hey, we're getting there, and if this formation works, you can expect incredible scores, or at least that's what I hope for. And we're also going to be testing it at higher awakenings to really see what this is all about. So let's properly get this order in place. Bring in Volderon, bring her in, Lubu, the Somi, and then I guess Admiral Claw for the finish. Swap her stance and start ulting, I would say. So you can see that there's this spot where Lu Bu obviously can't ult because he's like in his deep descent, the ultimate that he gets upon deployment. And yeah, he already obviously has his ultimate ready to go as soon as he disables this stance for himself. And it should be a pretty simple team with everybody staying at maximum 50% HP because there is no healing besides the Somi. We're not going to be using the healing on Elowin at all. And I think our best bet is probably to bring Voltron to 200% rage and then use him every single time he does. Using Admiral Claw so he can get his inspiration is probably also vital. Makes me kind of wonder what is going on with Lu Bu and his kit there, because I think he can also charge past 100%. Is that what they meant with him being fully charged and then entering his stance? Though I kind of don't really see the point of us waiting for 200%. Let's see. Immediately enters deep descent upon reaching maximum power. Okay, so if he goes to 200 rage, he immediately enters it. And normally he gave... Yeah, I don't think it's that good of an idea to wait for him to enter 200%. It looks like it's something that might be relevant for, let's say, GVG or other autofocus content, where he's all of a sudden going to get some extra rage. And obviously the real question here is, do we really want to ult with Voltron? Do we want to hold until his ult is full? Hard to say, but I think we're just gonna go with the 200 state because it just increases his state, or Beta said it just does the same thing, so there shouldn't really be any losses anywhere. Yeah, so once again, everybody of our units here used is a 0, and there really isn't much to do besides just clicking on these hero icons right here. I guess one thing you could complain about is the fact that we are not running Lu Bu at maximum efficiency, and that is because Elowin over here actually heals Diao-chan, meaning that in his 2-tile range around him there is not 3 targets at low health. So yeah, we'll have to see how that turns out. We might, and obviously we'll do another try where we do a couple or get a couple awakenings so that we can have an idea of what this looks like if you were to, for example, put everybody to A3. So this is 56,000, nothing super optimized, pretty much just a almost auto run. And this is interesting. So we have Voltron who performs incredibly well. We have Hex and Silas who do their own thing. And then we have Claw and Lu Bu who do, to an extent, look like a disappointment. Now, what might be the reasons for that? Obviously, let's have a look at Lu Bu. The base reasoning would have to be the fact that he has AoE damage, right? So that his damage is mostly laid out for attacking multiple targets. That his biggest powerful stance only increases his attack by 40%. That it all really relies on Chaos Strike, while Chaos Strike again only immediately focuses AoE. And I guess he can't really make too much use of this whole shenanigan where as long as the HP of everybody are lower, he gains extra attack. So let's see if his A2 and A3 follow-ups are going to be able to massively raise his damage. So this is going to be a A3 version of all our infernal, of all our chaotic units. So Voltron, who ignores 50% of the target's defense, as well as triggering his ultimate on deployment. Lu Bu, who gains 20% damage against unblocked targets, as well as 40% damage on his Chaos Strike. Claw, who gains 10% additional penetration during Bloodstorm Annihilator, as well as... So, conclusion after the fight, everybody did survive. It might still be optimal to introduce a Laurel to, for example, boost Voltron's rage even further. Though, and also you might be able to use a Diao-chan A3 one tile down, still boosting the same units because she gets the extra tile range, so that you could, for example, Laurel boost 2 units when it comes to offensive fighters. But overall we did 62,000. But what you're really gonna notice straight away is that Voltron got a big boost from his A3, which should be expected. Hex, Sealer stayed the same because we didn't change them. But Lu Bu and also Claw both didn't really gain anything too much, which might have to do with, for example, Claw gaining way too much penetration or his HP not dropping low enough. And Lu Bu, his 20% damage boost as well as 40% multiplier, it just isn't his strong suit when it comes to single target damage, though his kit overall seems very fun. So at least you can kind of check off the fact that he is not a single target unit, and you don't have to worry about pulling for him if you want, for example, to get the highest possible Guild Boss 1 scores. So I'm kind of in a very weird situation where, number one, I didn't use him properly throughout the video, because the way this ultimate actually reads is, if you use it on 100% ult charge, he just enters deep descent state. But if you use it at 200% ult charge, he gains a 40% attack increase as well as a lower trigger interval for Chaos Strike. The weirdness comes in if we take a look at our Guild Boss 1 and also Gear Rate 1 test, and that is the fact that his damage even becomes slightly worse when you use him at 200% ult in this team we've used him. I don't know how that is even possible. I mean, maybe it's the fault of me trying to make him work in his artifact, but I guess the real issue is, considering that he needs 200% rage and he doesn't gain it that fast, a 40% attack increase just isn't enough. So yeah, what you really need to know is 1 ult use, Deep Descent, which does the slow and also puts him at 65% HP, as well as going below 65, giving him the Chaos Strike reduction. And even if you do get the 40% reduction, when it comes to raw Gear Rate 1 / single target focus content, he does not radically increase his damage numbers, which is a very weird hero concept to look at. But once again, let's refocus on the last part, and that is kind of like the conclusion thing, which you're going to see right after this. Okay, so we know for a fact that my guy is not a single target unit, obviously clear from the kit, but it could have always been a case of multipliers as well as attack rates and such changing it. But even at, as you've seen, A3, he didn't necessarily increase his damage all that much. So what we're gonna be having to think about now is, where do you use him? What do you do with a 3 tile or then 4 tile range during ultimate, as well as also his ability to be very tanky and not really die. So someone that is obviously an obvious conclusion is gonna be right here, Ardea. Simply speaking, if you do not have Ardea, you can use Lu Bu to the same effect in every single piece of content, though just from the stats, the multipliers and the burst damage as well as range, considering both are A0, Lu Bu tends to be the weaker Ardea. So unless you are running both of them at the same time, you would most likely be picking Ardea over Lu Bu, unless you know for a fact that your units are getting attacked. Because as you know, Ardea, she doesn't necessarily have all that much defense. She kind of just reduces her own HP and then ends up being one-tapped in certain scenarios, which for him obviously isn't the case, because my guy is basically unkillable. So depending on the awakenings, either for 15 or 30 seconds on deployment, he cannot be killed because he then just ignores the fatal damage and restores 50% HP. Or if you do go all the way to A5, he doesn't die anyway during ultimate or upon first deployment, but just reduces the duration of the ultimate by 5 extra seconds. Yeah. Honestly, he seems like a PvP character. He doesn't seem like anyone you necessarily are going to be needing for other pieces of content. He might be able to do a little bit of stuff like Ardea for Gear Dungeon 2. Gear Dungeon 1 he doesn't have relevance because it's not magic damage. Gear Raid 1, 2, 3 we don't really expect much from him. Obviously he can't hit air, and also with his range it's going to be a bit harder for him to perform in Gear Raid 2. So we'll be giving him a shot in Gear Raid 1 just so you have an idea of his AoE potential. Otherwise, arena showcase wise, there could be a lot of stuff I can showcase, but overall keep in mind, if you do have a team that already uses, let's say, Voltron and Ardea, you can always slot out Ardea for him, or if you can't build a team yet, use him instead. Though just from his kit, he is a AoE focused unit, so units or pieces of content that obviously come to mind straight away would have to be the Conqueror Codex, as well as the upcoming Conqueror Styx Dual Codex. Though keep in mind, something I can already tell you, is the fact that single target damage is way more important than the AoE part of the Codex, though he might be the one that allows you to get through there in the first place. He doesn't do debuffs, so Arbiter of Frost seems very, very unlikely for him to stand a chance. Tide pretty much solves itself. Later this year we're supposed to get a Chaotic and a Arbiter faction trial, so there he's most likely going to perform well, though I do not know to what extent they are going to be having this one. Campaign, you can only imagine him pretty much wrecking the later chapters, be it chapter 9 and chapter 10, though those obviously for most of you aren't really a focus. Otherwise you have a black screen, right? You have a black screen, so let's restart the game and get back. So lastly, what we really have left from content has to be Void Rift, but specifically Void Rift Epilogue, and that is going to be the big fight, right? The big boy fight at the end right here against the Cyclone boss, where you want to defend these 2 lanes or these 4 lanes against these units that come in. He can replace Ardea there, so that makes it 4 units you can use here. Valeria, Cerberus, Ardea and Lubu. These 4 units can be used to reliably defend these waves. Though sadly the rewards for clearing Epilogue aren't that great that it would be a reason for you to pull there. Which leaves us with, once again, one last field of PvP content, and that is going to be GVG. There's just one slight issue, and that is I cannot show you GVG content on the test server because the test server GVG situation doesn't work. You do not get into fights and you do not really have the chance to set up any GVG defenses. But the same way an Ardea works, but even more annoying, y'all already know an A5 Lubu is going to be a pain in the ass to kill, because not only is he invulnerable on deployment, he's invulnerable doing ultimate, he doesn't die instantly, he just ignores the damage. So let's say a Maw wants to one-shot him, rather than one-shot him, what Maw actually does is he's going to get the damage completely ignored, because he ignores the damage that takes him to 0, and then only loses 5 seconds of his ultimate for that. And even then, as soon as he still leaves the state, he still ignores the last hit and then regenerates 50% HP. So let's quickly give him a high BP set so that all of you GVG focused people out there have an idea of how high he can go. So this is 113. This is his exclusive artifact. bringing him to a very solid 116,000 BP, which could go to like 120,000 if you start using quad stat, left side gear, as well as a Cataclysm set with Northerner faction bonus wherever we do have it. So those are also things that could push him further. So I would say his maximum potential is somewhere in the 120,000 realm. Lu Bu, let's finish it off on gear rate 1. So just so we can get an idea of his survivability plus AoE damage, we'll be going into 121 with the following team, with him and Lesir. Lesir for the anti-heal, him for the damage as well as Lesir. Diao-chan for the permanent inspiration boost, because she also doesn't heal, which might allow us to keep him lower HP and really test his survivability. Mary for the slows and the freeze. Elowen for some extra rage regen. Hollow for some rage regen, as well as slight healing to keep our Lu Bu alive. And then we have a Volker, who really is just in a supporting role, but she might actually get her turn to play. So let's see how this turns out, because honestly 121 is one of these stages that you do really notice you can't really survive them. Even in Abomination, which is one of like the more tankier units you could even get, is still struggling here when it comes to surviving here properly. So let's actually instantly swap to the inspiration stance, as well as provide every single unit. So here we see a bit of an attack. He is getting hit pretty hard. As you can see, obviously there's currently no healer on the field, and there he would be dead. So we could, for example, activate his ultimate to stave off death here, or we're just going to be doing the sensible thing and placing a healer in first, especially because if we do have her in this attack boosting stance, she is not going to provide any healing on her own. So let's see if a Hollow is enough to keep him alive, especially later with the more damaging waves. It is going to get more and more difficult for Lu Bu to stay alive. So let's see if, yeah, there we go. So we were able to at least time the ultimate. And then right here we can almost hold out until we get the first fake totem wave, activate Lesir. As soon as that is done, we can give ourselves the rage boost, bring in Elowen, and so far he is still surviving, but he also isn't doing the most amount of damage you've ever seen in your life. Makes me wonder if I actually gave him gear, though I should have, I think. Let's quickly check and then get back to the same point. Alright, so we are at basically the same point, and again this time he still had gear the last time around, so this time there's no need to stop and check. And I guess something that is noticeable when you're thinking about using Diao-chan as a unit, who's also going to be easier to get, is that you do want to boost your attack of your units rather than anything else. But as you've still seen here, even in 121, it doesn't really look like my guy is surviving in front of the wall. And the real thing would be here. Let's say we place him behind the wall. What you're going to notice is that with the boss coming in, or whenever the boss does come in, you see that he is at least slightly able to hit the boss, but only with his chaos strikes. The others can't reach. So if you wanted to do the same thing Ardea would normally be doing, you would have to use him on A1. Though otherwise here the chaos strikes, also what you're going to see is right here the fact that it does have this 2-tile to the side Ingrid style range. So overall, I mean, we can try the same thing again in this style and see if this is enough to beat the stage, though I am not quite sure if that is something we can expect, but we'll definitely give it a shot. And for this one we would either need Diao-chan's A3 to even reach Lu Bu here in the middle spot, because she would add in that extra tile, or we would have to bring someone like a Constance. So I guess we would have to place him, let's say, on the left side, provide him with inspiration like this. and then see how this goes. So far, honestly, nothing too crazy. And it's not like the gear is the problem. If you're curious about the gear is going to be the same thing we've also used. The same thing we've also used for the Guild Boss run. Yeah, let's see. So here once again, we obviously activate the inspiration state. Bring in Laurel. Activate Lucia so that the healing doesn't proc, and then go to town, I guess. We can probably, yeah, we can still keep it like this, and you kind of really do see that there isn't all that much damage that he deals. His numbers are like half of what a Lucia does, and we all really know that Lucia isn't that crazily known for his damage. Obviously, it might be a bit harsh to compare him like this here, though he really does generally look like a weaker version of Ardea. Slightly less range, kinda needs the A1 to do the same thing. Nothing that super heavily sets him apart, besides being probably the most annoying unit ever to be killed in GVG. And I guess that is also going to be ending up as his strong suit. But yeah, you can really see that our people are struggling even with the extra enter here. There just isn't enough. There, obviously, you can always support with a Karmit and someone else, but him being AoE focused and still not doing that much, and for example, him not doing all that great on single target, now him in an AoE situation, still not doing all that impressive. At least he was able to clear out his side there, so it looks like our fortress is going to fall in just a bit, and then we'll have a brief look at how he stacks up compared to, let's say, Lucia. So it's nowhere close the level of dominance that someone like a Magda has when it comes to raw AoE power. So you see here kind of just gets rushed. His awakenings do seem also really important at keeping him alive longer, keeping him even tankier. So yeah, you'll see that he did out damage Lucia, though that ain't the greatest of feats mankind has ever seen. Yeah, I think we already briefly had our conclusion before this, so yeah, make of this what you will. The most important part in my eyes, at least for the Valentine's thing, is that at least it isn't the other way around, with her being the Chaos exclusive unit and him being our limited unit. So yeah, he kind of also feels like an Ares in a sense, though he doesn't do magic damage like Ares does. And we see each other in the next one. Peace.